As the sun slowly dipped behind the 7 hills of Rome, the city began to change. The noise of the forum softened. Merchants packed away their stalls. Senators returned to their homes. Soldiers relaxed their armor. Oil lamps flickered to life, casting warm, golden light across stone walls and narrow streets. For the people of ancient Rome, night was not just the end of the day, it was a transition into rest, reflection, and ritual. And one important question remained before sleep. What would they eat? Unlike modern Americans, ancient Romans did not believe in heavy midnight snacks or sugary desserts before bed. Their final meal of the day was deeply connected to social class, health beliefs, religion, and even philosophy. What a Roman ate before sleeping could reveal who they were, how wealthy they were, and how they understood the human body. To understand this, we must first understand how Romans structured their. Ancient Romans typically ate 3 meals: ientaculum, a light breakfast; prandium, a small midday meal; cena, the main meal eaten in the late afternoon or early evening. The cena was the last significant meal before sleep. There was no separate late-night dinner like in modern culture. After cena, Romans usually consumed only light foods, if anything at all, before going to bed. But what exactly did cena include? That depended on one thing above all else: social class. For the poor, simple, practical, and filling. Most Romans were poor. They lived in crowded apartment buildings called insulae, often without kitchens. Fire was dangerous. Food had to be cheap, easy to digest, and available from street vendors or communal ovens. Before sleep, a poor Roman's last food often included bread made from barley or wheat, pulse, a thick porridge made from grain and water, olives, a small piece of cheese, water or diluted wine. This meal was not about pleasure. It was about survival. Bread was the backbone of Roman life. Grain distributions, called annona, were essential for keeping the population fed and calm. Eating bread before sleep ensured energy for the next day of labor. Porridge or pulse was especially common. It was warm, easy to digest, and comforting, ideal for nighttime consumption. Romans believed that going to sleep hungry weakened the body, but eating too heavily disturbed sleep. Pulse struck the perfect balance. For the middle class, balance and moderation. Shopkeepers, craftsmen, scribes, and minor officials lived more comfortably. Their evening meal before sleep might include fresh bread, cooked vegetables like cabbage, lentils, or leeks, eggs, cheese, fruit such as figs, grapes, or apples, light wine mixed with water. Romans believed that raw food at night was unhealthy, so vegetables were often boiled or stewed. Cabbage was especially popular. Roman writers praised it as a miracle food that aided digestion and prevented illness. Eating cabbage in the evening was considered wise and disciplined. Eggs were another common nighttime food. Light, nourishing, and easy to prepare, eggs symbolized completeness, often eaten at the beginning or end of meals. For the wealthy, luxury, display, and excess. For the elite, the final meal before sleep could be an event. Senators, generals, and wealthy merchants hosted elaborate cenae that lasted for hours. Guests reclined on couches, servants poured wine, musicians played softly, and food arrived in multiple courses. A wealthy Roman might eat roasted meats, pork, lamb, or game, fish and seafood, exotic birds like flamingo or peacock, sauces flavored with herbs, honey, and spices, fresh fruit and nuts, sweet dishes made with honey, spiced wine. However, here's something surprising. They didn't always eat all of it. Elite Romans practiced controlled indulgence. Some deliberately ate small portions, while others purged using emetics, a disturbing but real practice, to continue feasting without discomfort. Before sleeping, many wealthy Romans ended their meal with fruit, nuts, honeyed wine, and digestive herbs. These foods were believed to calm the stomach and promote restful sleep.
Roman beliefs about eating before sleep. Romans were obsessed with balance. Medical thinkers like Galen believed the body was governed by four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Eating the wrong food at night could disrupt this balance and cause nightmares, indigestion, or illness. Common Roman beliefs included heavy meat before sleep caused bad dreams. Cold foods slowed digestion at night. Warm, soft foods were safest before bed. Overeating weakened the soul. Philosophers like Seneca warned against gluttony, saying that a disciplined stomach led to a disciplined mind. To Romans, how you ate before sleeping reflected your moral character. Wine before bed. Yes, but carefully. Romans drank wine daily, but rarely undiluted. Before sleep, wine was mixed with water to avoid excess. A small cup was thought to relax the body, ease digestion, calm the mind. Drunkenness, however, was considered shameful, especially at night. A Roman who went to bed drunk was seen as lacking self-control. No refrigerators, no midnight snacks. Once the oil lamps were extinguished, the kitchen was closed. There were no refrigerators, no packaged snacks, no late-night deliveries. Nighttime eating was rare and discouraged. Sleep was sacred. Romans believed the body repaired itself during sleep, and interfering with digestion disrupted this natural process. A quiet end to the day. As darkness settled over Rome, families finished their meals. Dishes were cleared, hands were washed, prayers were spoken to household gods, the Lares and Penates. The final taste of bread, fruit, or porridge lingered. And with full but not heavy stomachs, Romans lay down to sleep, preparing for another day in the eternal city.
Night fell in ancient Rome. The city did not completely sleep. Behind the grand temples and marble villas existed another Rome. A Rome of narrow alleys, flickering torches, and the quiet murmur of late-night hunger. While philosophers preached moderation and doctors warned against eating before bed, real life often told a different story. Not everyone followed the rules, and not everyone went to sleep hungry. Rome never truly slept. Rome was a city of over 1 million people at its peak. Slaves worked through the night. Bakers rose before dawn. Soldiers stood watch. Entertainers returned late from performances. Laborers finished exhausting shifts. For many, the last meal came long after sunset. But unlike today, late-night food was not eaten at home. It was bought outside. Thermopolia, Rome's late-night food spots. If you walked through Rome after dark, you would see small shops with wide counters facing the street. Embedded in these counters were large clay jars filled with hot food. These places were called thermopolia. Think of them as a mix between a fast food stall, a diner, and a convenience store. Most poor Romans did not have kitchens. Cooking inside insulae was dangerous and often illegal, so street food was not a luxury, it was survival. What was served late at night? Late-night food had to be cheap, warm, easy to eat, filling. Common foods sold at night included stews made from beans or lentils, bread soaked in broth, sausages, cheese, leftover meat, hot wine spiced with herbs. The food was simple but comforting. A bowl of hot lentils before sleep could warm the body and calm hunger, especially during colder months. Sausages, Rome's street food favorite. One of the most popular late-night foods was sausage. Roman sausages were made from pork, fat, salt, herbs, sometimes blood. They were cheap to produce and easy to preserve. Street vendors grilled them over open flames, filling the air with smoky aromas that tempted even disciplined citizens. Eating sausage late at night was common, though doctors frowned upon it. Bread and broth, the poor man's night meal. For those with little money, the simplest late-night meal was old bread, hot broth. Bread was dipped into the liquid, softening it and making it easier to digest. This practice was especially common among slaves, dock workers, and night guards. It provided warmth, hydration,
and calories, all without heavy digestion. Taverns and wine shops. Romans had tabernae, wine shops and taverns that stayed open late. These were not elegant places. They were loud, smoky, and often associated with gambling, prostitution, and crime. But they were also places where people ate and drank before sleeping. Late-night tavern food included cold meats, olives, bread, and cheese. The food was salty, encouraging more drinking. The moral judgment of late-night eating. Roman elites looked down on late-night eating. Writers like Juvenal mocked people who roamed the streets after dark searching for food. Late-night eating was associated with lack of discipline, poverty, vice, and foreign influence. A respectable Roman was expected to finish eating before nightfall, but reality didn't always match ideals. Women and night eating. Women's eating habits were closely watched. Elite women were expected to eat lightly, especially at night. Overeating was seen as immoral. However, slaves and working women often ate whenever they could, including late at night. For them, food was fuel, not philosophy. Foreign influences on night food. Rome was a melting pot. Immigrants from Greece, Egypt, Syria, and North Africa brought their own food habits. Some cultures favored night meals, which shocked traditional Romans. Spiced dishes, sweet pastries, and stronger wines slowly entered Roman nightlife, especially in port cities. Doctors versus reality. Roman doctors warned that eating late caused poor digestion, nightmares, lethargy, and illness. But hunger didn't care about medical advice. For the poor and exhausted, a warm meal mattered more than theory. The quiet hunger of the night. As the streets emptied, Thermopylae closed the shutters. The last bowls were scraped clean. Those who had eaten slept more soundly. Those who hadn't lay awake, stomachs aching, waiting for dawn.
When a Roman soldier lay down to sleep, his stomach was rarely empty. The Roman army was built on discipline, routine, and endurance. Commanders understood one truth very clearly: a hungry soldier is a weak soldier. What Roman soldiers ate before sleeping was not about luxury or pleasure. It was about survival, strength, and readiness for war. Life in the Roman military camp. Roman military camps were highly organized. Tents were placed in perfect rows. Cooking areas were designated. Meals were scheduled. Soldiers did not eat whenever they wished. Food followed order, just like everything else in the army. The final meal before sleep was usually eaten after sunset, once the day's duties were complete. The foundation of a soldier's diet: grain. The core of a Roman soldier's food was grain. Each soldier received a regular grain ration, usually wheat. Before sleep, soldiers often ate pulse, grain porridge, bread, grain boiled in water. This provided slow-burning energy that lasted through the night. Grain was portable, cheap, and reliable, perfect for military life. Cooking in the camps. Roman soldiers cooked their own food. Each group of 8 soldiers, called a contubernium, shared cooking duties. At night, they prepared simple meals over open fires: grain porridge, bread, stews. No fancy spices, no rich sauces, just nourishment. Protein. Meat was rare but valued. Meat was not eaten daily. When available, soldiers might eat pork, bacon, salted meat. Before sleeping, meat was eaten in small portions, usually mixed into stews. Salted meat helped preserve food and replace electrolytes lost during marches. Cheese, beans, and vegetables. Soldiers also ate cheese, especially hard cheese, beans and lentils, onions, and garlic. These foods were believed to strengthen the body, improve endurance, and ward off disease. Garlic, in particular, was associated with strength and courage. Wine before sleep. Roman soldiers drank wine, but diluted. Before sleeping, a small ration of watered wine was common. It helped relax muscles, reduce pain, and boost morale. Drunkenness, however, was punished. A drunk soldier on watch could be executed.
hard bread at night hunger. One iconic military food was bucalatum, hard, dry bread. Before sleep, soldiers sometimes chewed on it slowly or softened it in water or wine. It wasn't tasty, but it filled the stomach. Beliefs about strength and sleep. Romans believed digestion affected strength. A light but nourishing meal before sleep was ideal. Overeating was discouraged. It made soldiers sluggish the next morning. Commanders monitored food closely. Discipline extended to the stomach. Campaign life versus camp life. On campaign, food was scarcer. Before sleep, soldiers might eat foraged plants, whatever grain remained, spoils from conquered areas. Hunger was common. Still, Romans believed enduring hunger built character. The soldier's night. After eating, soldiers cleaned their equipment, said prayers to Mars, and rested. A full stomach meant better sleep, faster recovery, and readiness for battle. Food before sleep was not indulgence, it was strategy.
When people imagine Roman gladiators, they picture massive, muscle-bound warriors fueled by endless meat and wine. The reality? Very different. What gladiators ate before sleeping reveals a surprising truth about ancient nutrition, one that even modern athletes might respect. Who were the gladiators? Gladiators were professional fighters trained in special schools called ludi. They were slaves, prisoners of war, criminals, or volunteers seeking fame and money. Despite their violent role, gladiators were valuable investments. Owners wanted them alive, healthy, and strong. That meant careful control over their diet, especially before sleep. The gladiator diet, mostly plant-based. Gladiators were often called hordearii, barley eaters. Their diet was heavy in barley, beans, lentils, vegetables. Meat was eaten rarely. Before sleeping, gladiators commonly ate barley porridge, bean stew, bread, and vegetables. This wasn't accidental. Why barley and beans? Barley and legumes provided long-lasting energy, muscle recovery, and fat storage. Yes, fat. Gladiators intentionally maintained a layer of body fat. It protected organs from cuts and reduced fatal injuries in the arena. Before sleep, slow digesting foods like barley helped the body rebuild overnight. The famous ash drink. One of the most unusual gladiator practices came after evening meals. They drank a tonic made from burnt wood ash, vinegar, or water. This drink was rich in calcium and minerals. Before sleep, it helped strengthen bones, heal fractures, and reduce injury risk. Modern science later confirmed its benefits. Wine and gladiators. Gladiators drank wine, but in moderation. Before sleep, watered wine helped with pain relief and relaxation. Excess was forbidden. An injured or drunk gladiator was a wasted investment. Eating before sleep, a controlled routine. Unlike wealthy Romans who feasted late, gladiators followed strict schedules. Their final meal was warm, heavy enough to nourish, but light enough to avoid stomach strain. Sleep was crucial for muscle recovery. No luxury, no choice. Gladiators didn't choose their meals. Food was medicine. Before sleeping, their stomachs were filled not for pleasure, but for performance. The night before the arena. On nights before combat, diets were even more controlled. No rich foods, no excess wine, just simple porridge and rest. The gladiator's body at night. As they slept, their bodies repaired muscle tears, healed wounds, and stored energy. The last meal of the day made this possible.
As night settled over ancient Rome, homes grew quieter. Oil lamps dimmed. Parents finished their work, and children, a future of Rome, prepared for sleep. What Roman children ate before sleeping was simple, comforting, and deeply tied to family life. Unlike elite banquets or military rations, children's food reflected care, routine, and belief. The Roman family at night. Roman households were centered around the pater familias, But when it came to children, mothers and nurses played the biggest role. Children usually ate with the family during cena, but they often received an extra light meal before bed, especially younger ones. Romans believed that children should never go to sleep hungry. Common bedtime foods for children. Before sleep, Roman children often ate warm milk, bread dipped in milk or honeyed water, soft porridge, mashed fruit like figs or apples, cheese in small amounts. These foods were easy to digest, calming, and nourishing. Warm food was thought to soothe the body and encourage sleep. Milk, a bedtime staple. Milk played a major role in children's nighttime diet. It was believed to promote growth, calm the stomach, strengthen bones. Milk came from goats, sheep, or cows. Before sleeping, milk was often warmed and sometimes mixed with a little honey. Honey was sweet but controlled. Honey was the primary sweetener in Roman times. For children, a small amount of honey before sleep was considered healthy, but too much was discouraged. Parents believed excess sweetness led to restlessness and bad behavior. Moderation was key. Bread as comfort food. Bread was everywhere. For children, bread was often softened, soaked in milk, dipped in warm water, mixed with porridge. This made it easy for young stomachs and symbolized stability and care. Fruit before bed. Children commonly ate fruit before sleeping: figs, grapes, and apples. Figs were especially valued. They were soft, sweet, and easy to digest. Fruit was believed to cleanse the body and balance digestion. No wine for children. Unlike adults, children did not drink wine before bed. If wine was given at all, it was extremely diluted, more water than wine, and only to older children. Roman culture strongly discouraged drunkenness in youth. Bedtime rituals and food. Eating before sleep was part of a larger ritual. Hands were washed, prayers were spoken, small offerings were made to household gods. Food was connected to protection and blessing. Wealthy versus poor children. Poor children ate simpler meals, bread and water, thin porridge. Wealthy children had access to better milk, more fruit, honeyed treats, but the goal was the same: a calm, full stomach before sleep. Beliefs about growth and sleep. Romans believed growth happened during sleep. A light, nourishing meal before bed supported this process. Starving a child at night was considered cruel and dangerous. A child's night in Rome. With warm food in their stomachs and stories whispered by candlelight, Roman children drifted to sleep. Their final meal wasn't about status, it was about care. When night fell in ancient Rome, not everyone slept in comfort. For the millions of slaves who powered the Roman economy, food before sleep was uncertain, controlled, and often inadequate. What slaves ate at night depended entirely on who owned them, where they worked, and how valuable they were. Food was not just nourishment, it was a tool of power. The life of a Roman slave. Roman slaves worked in many environments: private homes, farms, mines, workshops, public construction. Their food reflected their role. A well-fed slave worked better. A starving slave was cheap but dangerous. Night meals were not guaranteed. Unlike free citizens, slaves were not entitled to meals. Some ate during the evening, others slept hungry. Before sleeping, a slave might eat leftovers from the household, grain porridge, bread and water,
nothing at all. Food before sleep was a privilege, not a right. Household slaves, the best fed. Slaves working in wealthy homes ate better than most. Before sleeping, they might receive bread, leftover vegetables, pulse, occasionally meat scraps. They often ate after the family finished dinner. Kitchen slaves sometimes benefited the most, quietly consuming leftovers. Field slaves and laborers. Agricultural slaves ate harsher diets. Their nighttime meal often consisted of coarse grain porridge, beans or lentils, water, no wine, no fruit, enough to keep them alive and working. Slaves in mines, the worst conditions. Mining slaves lived brutal lives. Before sleep, they ate minimal rations, if any, often thin gruel, old bread. Many went to sleep hungry, exhausted, and injured. Life expectancy was short. Food as control. Owners controlled food to enforce obedience, punish behavior, reward loyalty. A fuller meal before sleep meant favor. Hunger meant discipline. Beliefs about feeding slaves. Some Roman writers advised feeding slaves enough at night to prevent rebellion. A hungry slave was desperate. A desperate slave was dangerous. Slaves eating in secret. Some slaves stole food. Late at night, they hid bread, saved scraps, shared food quietly. Eating secretly before sleep was an act of resistance. Sleep and survival. Sleep was shallow when hungry. Slaves learned to endure. Food before sleep, no matter how small, was hope for another day. A silent night. As masters slept on soft beds, slaves lay on floors or straw. If their stomachs were full, it was luck. If not, it was normal.
In ancient Rome, food was never just food. For women especially, what they ate before sleeping was closely tied to beauty standards, morality, fertility, and social control. A woman's diet was watched, judged, and often restricted, not for health, but for reputation. Women and food in Roman society. Roman society expected women to be modest, disciplined, and self-controlled. Overeating, especially at night, was seen as a moral failure. A woman who ate heavily before sleep risked gossip, criticism, and shame. Elite women, light and elegant meals. Upper-class women were expected to eat less than men. Before sleeping, elite women commonly ate fruit, nuts, small portions of cheese, bread dipped in water or wine. Heavy foods like meat were avoided at night. The goal was to maintain a slim figure and graceful appearance. Beauty beliefs and night eating. Romans believed that eating too much before sleep caused weight gain, bad skin, and sluggish movement. Women were advised to eat lightly in the evening to preserve beauty. Some even skipped food before bed entirely. Pregnant women and special care. Pregnant women were treated differently. They were encouraged to eat before sleep, including warm porridge, milk, and fruit. Roman doctors believed nighttime nourishment helped fetal growth. Working class women. Poor women, especially laborers, ate more practical meals. Before sleeping, they ate pulses, bread, and vegetables. Beauty mattered less than survival. Wine and women. Women were discouraged from drinking wine. Before sleep, most women drank water, milk, or honeyed water. Wine consumption by women was heavily criticized in early Roman culture. Food and fertility. Certain foods were believed to improve fertility when eaten at night. Figs, dates, and honey. Women trying to conceive often included these before sleep. Eating in secret. Some women ate privately. Late-night hunger didn't disappear just because society disapproved. Food was hidden, eaten quietly, unrecorded. The quiet control. What women ate before sleeping was rarely their own choice. It reflected expectations imposed by fathers, husbands, and society.
a Roman woman's night. With careful portions and quiet restraint, Roman women ended their day, their stomachs light, their reputations intact. For Roman philosophers, food was never just fuel. It was philosophy on a plate. What you ate, when you ate, and especially what you ate before sleeping, was believed to shape not only your body, but your character, discipline, and soul. To understand Roman thinking about nighttime eating, we must step into a world where self-control was considered the highest virtue. Food as moral practice. Roman philosophy was heavily influenced by Greek thought, especially Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Cynicism. Across these schools, one idea remained consistent: a person who cannot control their appetite cannot control their life. Eating before sleep was seen as a critical test of restraint. Nighttime was when temptation was strongest and discipline mattered most. Stoics: eat to live, not live to eat. Stoic philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius preached moderation above all. For Stoics, the ideal evening meal before sleep was simple, light, purposeful. Seneca criticized Romans who feasted late into the night, calling them slaves to pleasure. According to Stoic belief, heavy food clouded the mind. Overeating weakened self-control. Late-night indulgence distracted from reflection. A Stoic might eat before sleep bread, vegetables, a small portion of porridge, water or diluted wine, nothing more. Sleep was for reflection, not digestion. Stoic believes the mind should be calm before sleep. If the body was struggling to digest heavy food, the mind could not reflect properly. Seneca advised reviewing one's actions of the day before sleeping, something impossible with a bloated stomach. Thus, eating lightly before bed was a mental discipline, not just a physical one. Epicureans: pleasure, but with wisdom. Epicureans are often misunderstood as lovers of excess. In reality, they valued simple pleasure and freedom from pain. Epicurus himself preferred bread, cheese, and water. Before sleep, Epicureans avoided heavy meals not because they were immoral, but because they caused discomfort. Their belief was simple: true pleasure is the absence of pain. Overeating before sleep led to indigestion, nightmares, and restlessness, the opposite of pleasure. Epicurean night eating. An Epicurean evening meal before sleep might include fruit, bread, light cheese, and water. They rejected luxury foods at night, not out of strictness, but practicality. Cynics: rejecting comfort entirely. Cynic philosophers took discipline to the extreme. They believed civilization corrupted human nature. Some cynics deliberately went to sleep hungry to prove they were free from bodily needs. Eating before sleep was seen as weakness. Famous cynics mocked Romans who needed comfort food to rest. To them, hunger was training. Pythagoreans: spiritual rules around night eating. The Pythagoreans followed strict dietary rules. They believed food affected the soul. Before sleep, they avoided beans, heavy meats, and excess wine. Beans were believed to disturb dreams and block spiritual clarity. Their evening meals were carefully chosen to ensure peaceful sleep and spiritual harmony. Medical philosophy and the humors. Roman philosophers often aligned with medical theory. The body was believed to contain 4 humors, and sleep was a time when balance was restored. Thus, eating the wrong food before sleep could heat the body too much, create phlegm, or cause nightmares. Thus, philosophers recommended warm, soft foods, no excess, no strong spices. Night eating and self-examination. Many philosophers believed that sleep followed by dreams revealed the state of the soul. Bad dreams were blamed on greed, excess, and heavy eating. A disciplined meal before sleep led to calm dreams and a clear conscience. Marcus Aurelius and imperial discipline. Even Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, lived modestly. Historical accounts suggest his evening meals were simple. Despite ruling an empire, he believed luxury weakened the spirit. Eating lightly before sleep was part of ruling oneself before ruling others. Philosophy versus reality. Of course, most Romans did not live like philosophers, but philosophical ideas influenced elite culture. To eat lightly before bed became a symbol of intelligence, education, and moral superiority. A Roman who bragged about restraint gained respect. The ideal philosophical night. For philosophers, the perfect night looked like this: light meal, calm digestion, reflection on the day, restful sleep. Food was the beginning, not the focus. A quiet wisdom. In the end, Roman philosophers taught that the stomach should never command the mind. What you ate before sleeping shaped who you were when you woke.
In ancient Rome, the night was not just darkness. It was mystery. It was fear. It was the world of spirits, dreams, omens, and unseen forces. Romans did not believe sleep was neutral. They believed what you ate before sleeping shaped your dreams, your health, and your fate. Food and the supernatural were deeply connected. The Roman fear of the night. Romans believed that after sunset, spirits wandered, demons moved freely, the boundary between worlds weakened, dreams carried messages from the gods. Sleep was sacred and dangerous. The body was vulnerable, the soul was exposed, and the stomach? It was the gateway. Dreams as messages. Romans believed dreams were not random. They were prophecies, warnings, divine messages, signs of imbalance. If someone had nightmares, the first question asked was, "What did you eat before sleeping?" Foods believed to cause bad dreams. Certain foods were feared at night. Romans avoided eating these before sleep. Beans. Beans were considered spiritually dangerous. Many Romans believed beans trapped souls, disturbed dreams, blocked spiritual clarity. Pythagoreans completely banned beans from nighttime meals. Heavy meat, especially pork, fatty meat, game meat. Heavy meat was believed to heat the body, agitate the blood, cause violent dreams, trigger nightmares. Strong spices. Spices were considered too stimulating. They believed spicy food at night caused restlessness, sexual dreams, agitation, overheating. Raw food. Raw vegetables and fruits at night were feared. Romans believed raw foods slowed digestion, cooled the stomach, created phlegm, caused sickness. Cooked food was safer for sleep. Foods believed to protect sleep. Romans preferred calming foods before bed: warm porridge, bread, milk, honeyed water, cooked vegetables, soft fruits like figs. These were believed to calm the body, protect dreams, guard the soul. Herbs used before sleep. Certain herbs were eaten or brewed before sleeping. Chamomile for calm, fennel for digestion, mint for clarity, laurel for protection. Herbal drinks were common nighttime rituals. Superstitions about drinking before sleep. Undiluted wine was feared. Drunken sleep was believed to invite evil spirits, weaken the soul, cause prophetic nightmares, attract bad omens. Drinking too much wine before bed was considered spiritually dangerous. Protective rituals with food. Romans performed small rituals before sleep: food offerings to household gods, bread placed near beds, milk offered to spirits, prayers before eating. Food was protection, not just nutrition. Night demons and fear. Romans believed in night spirits, lemures, restless dead, larvae, malevolent ghosts. A calm stomach meant a calm soul. An agitated stomach invited spiritual chaos. Children and night fears. Children were especially protected. They were not allowed to eat heavy food, spicy food, strong herbs. Before sleep, children ate only calming foods to protect dreams. Nightmares as moral judgment. If someone had nightmares, Romans believed they had sinned, they had overeaten, they had angered the gods, they had lost balance. Food was blamed before fate.
the silent rules of the night. These beliefs were not written laws, they were traditions, passed through families, whispered through generations. A sacred sleep. For Romans, sleep was not rest, it was a journey. What you ate before sleeping decided how safe that journey would be.
In ancient Rome, food was never separate from faith. Every meal had meaning. Every bite could be an offering. And what Romans ate before sleeping was deeply connected to their relationship with the gods. Nighttime was sacred and dangerous. Romans believed the gods watched closely when the world went quiet. To eat before sleep was not just nourishment, it was communication with the divine. The Roman view of the gods at night. Romans believed the gods were always present, but night was different. After sunset, spirits moved freely. The household became vulnerable. Dreams carried divine messages. Before sleeping, Romans focused on protection. Food played a central role. Household gods, Lares and Penates. Every Roman home honored two important sets of gods. Lares, guardians of the household and family, and Penates, gods of the pantry and food supply. Before the final meal of the day, small offerings were often made to them. This was especially true before sleep. Sacred foods offered before bed. Romans believed certain foods pleased the gods and ensured protection through the night. Common sacred foods included bread, fruit, milk, honey, wine diluted. A small portion was set aside before eating. The rest was consumed by the family. Bread, the most sacred food. Bread was more than food. It symbolized life, stability, divine favor. Before sleeping, bread was often offered at the household shrine, broken and shared, placed near the hearth. Some families left a piece of bread overnight to honor the spirits. Milk and honey, food of the gods. Milk and honey were considered pure. They were associated with innocence, protection, and blessing. Before sleep, especially in homes with children, milk or honeyed water was offered to household gods. Romans believed these foods calmed spirits and invited good dreams. Wine, sacred but controlled. Wine was sacred to Bacchus, the god of wine. Before sleep, wine was diluted with water, offered in small amounts. A few drops might be poured on the ground as an offering. Drunkenness before sleep was seen as disrespectful to the gods. Food and prayer before sleeping. Romans often prayed after eating, not before. Before sleep, prayers included gratitude for food, requests for protection, appeals for peaceful dreams. Eating without honoring the gods was considered dangerous. Sacrificial eating at night. During festivals or religious observances, special foods were eaten at night. These meals followed strict rules. Certain foods were avoided, others were mandatory. Eating sacred food before sleep was believed to bring divine favor. Vesta and the sacred hearth. The goddess Vesta protected the hearth and home. The hearth was sacred. Before sleep, the fire was tended, food scraps were offered, silence was respected. Eating near the hearth before bed was considered spiritually significant. Children and religious eating. Children were taught early, never waste food, never eat before sleep without gratitude, always honor the household gods. Food taught discipline and faith. Protective foods against spirits. Romans believed certain foods repelled evil spirits at night. Garlic, laurel leaves, and salted bread. These foods were sometimes eaten or placed nearby before sleep. Funerary beliefs and night eating. Romans believed the dead could visit at night. Food was left out to appease restless spirits, to prevent hauntings. Eating before sleep without honoring the dead was considered disrespectful. Food and purity before sleep. Religious purity mattered. Before sacred nights, Romans avoided meat, wine, and heavy food. They ate simple meals before sleep to remain spiritually clean. Religious fasting before sleep. Some religious rituals required going to sleep hungry. This was believed to sharpen spiritual awareness. Dreams after fasting were thought to be more prophetic. Dream incubation. In certain temples, Romans practiced dream incubation.
They ate specific foods before sleep to invite visions. These foods were chosen carefully and consumed in silence. Foreign religious influences. As Rome expanded, new religious practices entered: Egyptian rituals, Eastern mystery cults. Some introduced nighttime sacred meals. Traditional Romans viewed these with suspicion. Fear of offending the gods. Eating the wrong food before sleep could offend the gods. Offense meant nightmares, illness, bad luck. Romans took nighttime eating seriously. The sacred end of the day. For Romans, the final meal before sleep closed the day spiritually. Food fed the body, ritual fed the soul, and with the gods honored, Romans slept, believing they were protected.
In ancient Rome, medicine was not guesswork. It was theory, observation, and tradition, all mixed together. Roman doctors believed that sleep and digestion were deeply connected, and what a person ate before sleeping could decide their health, mood, and even lifespan. To them, the stomach at night was not resting, it was working, and if it worked poorly, the whole body suffered. Roman medicine, a Greek foundation. Most Roman medical knowledge came from Greek physicians. The most influential medical thinkers included Hippocrates, Galen, Soranus. Their ideas shaped Roman health beliefs for centuries. At the center of Roman medicine was the theory of the four humors. The four humors and night eating. According to Roman doctors, the body contained blood, hot and wet, phlegm, cold and wet, yellow bile, hot and dry, black bile, cold and dry. Health depended on balance. Sleep was when this balance was restored, but eating the wrong food before sleep could destroy that balance. Why night eating was dangerous. Doctors believed that during sleep, body heat moved inward, digestion slowed, blood circulation changed. Heavy food eaten before bed would sit undigested, producing harmful vapors called humors in decay. These vapors were believed to cause headaches, nightmares, indigestion, fever, and mental confusion. Doctors' golden rule: light, warm, simple. Roman physicians almost universally agreed on one principle: the last meal of the day should be light. Recommended foods before sleep included warm porridge, bread, cooked vegetables, soft fruits like figs, diluted wine or water. Cold, raw, or heavy foods were discouraged. Foods doctors warned against before sleep. Roman doctors advised avoiding fatty meats, raw vegetables, strong spices, undiluted wine, and excess cheese. These foods were believed to overstimulate the body at night. Meat and nightmares. Doctors believed meat increased heat and blood flow. Eaten before sleep, it could cause restless sleep, violent dreams, and aggressive behavior. Patients complaining of nightmares were often advised to reduce meat at night. Wine, medicine or poison. Wine was considered medicinal, in moderation. Before sleep, a small amount of diluted wine aided digestion. Too much caused imbalance. Doctors warned that drunken sleep weakened the heart and mind. Milk and sleep. Milk was controversial. Some doctors praised it for calming the body. Others warned it created phlegm. Milk before sleep was recommended only for children, the elderly, and the weak. Cheese and the night. Cheese was believed to be heavy and slow to digest. Doctors advised avoiding cheese before sleep, unless eaten in very small amounts. Herbs prescribed before bed. Doctors often prescribed herbs with nighttime meals: fennel to reduce gas, mint to calm digestion, chamomile to promote sleep, anise to ease stomach pain. Herbal infusions were common before bedtime. Special advice for the sick. Ill patients received strict instructions: eat very lightly before sleep, avoid wine, consume warm liquids. Doctors believed nighttime digestion was weakest in the sick. Age-based dietary advice. Roman doctors gave different advice based on age: children, warm milk, porridge; adults, bread, vegetables; elderly, soups, thin gruel;
Older bodies were believed to digest poorly at night. Timing of the final meal. Doctors recommended eating the last meal well before sleep. Sleeping immediately after eating was considered dangerous. A short walk after dinner was encouraged. Sleep position and digestion. Even sleep posture mattered. Doctors advised sleeping on their right side first, then turning left, believed to aid digestion. Medical discipline and social class. The wealthy could afford doctors and followed advice more closely. The poor often ignored it out of necessity. Doctors understood this, but still warned of the risks. Health was balance, not pleasure. Roman medicine did not aim for enjoyment, it aimed for balance. Eating before sleep was a medical decision, not a craving. The doctor's ideal night. According to Roman medicine, the perfect night included a light evening meal, time before sleeping, calm digestion, restful sleep. Food was medicine, sleep was healing.
Ancient Romans did not eat the same way all year. They believed nature controlled the body, and as the seasons changed, so should food, especially what was eaten before sleeping. Roman doctors, philosophers, and household traditions all agreed on one thing: nighttime food must match the season. Eating the wrong food at the wrong time of year was believed to cause illness, poor sleep, and imbalance. Why seasons mattered so much. Romans lived close to nature. No air conditioning, no refrigeration, no artificial climate control. The body was believed to absorb the qualities of the season. Summer equals heat and dryness, winter equals cold and moisture. Nighttime eating was adjusted to correct these extremes. Summer nights, cooling and light. Summer nights in Rome were hot and humid. Doctors warned that heavy food before sleep in summer was dangerous. What Romans ate before sleeping in summer. Common summer nighttime foods included light bread, fresh figs, grapes, cucumbers, lightly prepared, lettuce, cooked or softened, diluted wine or water. The goal was cooling the body, not fueling it. Foods avoided in summer nights. Romans avoided heavy meat, fried food, thick stews, strong spices, and excess wine. These foods were believed to overheat the body and cause fever or restless sleep. Herbs for summer sleep. Herbs commonly used in summer nights included mint, coriander, and fennel. They were believed to cool digestion and calm the stomach. Summer sleep beliefs. Romans believed overheating at night caused night sweats, bad dreams, and fatigue. Light eating was essential. Winter nights, warming and nourishing. Winter nights were cold, damp, and long. The body was believed to lose heat during sleep. Before bed, Romans ate more warming foods. What Romans ate before sleeping in winter. Common winter nighttime foods included warm porridge, bread with olive oil, bean or lentil stew, cooked cabbage, onions, and garlic. Warm wine diluted with water. These foods provided warmth and sustained energy. Meat in winter nights. Unlike summer, meat was more acceptable in winter, but still in moderation. Small portions of pork, bacon, salted meat were sometimes eaten before sleep. Herbs for winter sleep. Popular winter herbs included laurel, rosemary, and thyme. They were believed to stimulate warmth and circulation. Seasonal medical advice. Roman doctors advised eat less at night in summer, eat slightly more at night in winter. Always avoid extremes. Balance was the key. Seasonal differences by class. Wealthy Romans could adjust diets easily. The poor ate whatever was available, regardless of season. Doctors acknowledged this reality. Agriculture and availability. Seasonal eating was also practical. Fresh fruit in summer, stored grains in winter. Night meals reflected what nature provided. Seasonal rituals. Certain festivals influenced night eating. Winter festivals allowed richer food at night. Summer rituals emphasized restraint. Children and seasonal night food. Children were given cooling foods in summer, warming foods in winter. Their bodies were considered sensitive to seasonal imbalance.
sleep quality, and seasons. Romans believed good sleep required harmony between body, food, and season. Eating out of season was dangerous. The seasonal night in Rome. A Roman's final meal before sleep changed with the wind, the temperature, and the stars. Food followed nature. Nature guided health.
Ancient Rome was not one culture. It was an empire. From the misty forests of Britannia to the deserts of Egypt, millions of people lived under Roman rule, and what they ate before sleeping changed dramatically depending on where they lived. Roman laws, gods, and roads spread far and wide, but food remained deeply local. Climate, agriculture, religion, and tradition shaped nighttime meals more than imperial identity ever could. To understand what Romans ate before sleep, we must leave the city of Rome and travel across the empire. Italy, the ideal Roman diet. Italy was considered the heart of proper Roman living. Roman writers believed Italians ate the most balanced and civilized meals, especially at night. Before sleeping, people in Italy commonly ate wheat bread, olive oil, pulse, grain porridge, cooked vegetables like cabbage and leeks, fruit such as figs and grapes, diluted wine. The Italian climate allowed olives, grapes, and grains to thrive, making nighttime meals light but nourishing. Doctors often cited the Italian diet as the healthiest for sleep. Rome, the city, versus rural Italy. Even within Italy, differences existed. In the city of Rome, nighttime food was influenced by street vendors, taverns, and urban poverty. In rural Italy, people ate earlier and slept earlier. Their last meal before sleep was often home-cooked, warm, and simple. Rural Italians rarely ate late at night. Gaul, modern France, heavier night meals. In Gaul, Roman culture mixed with Celtic traditions. The climate was colder, and people believed stronger food was needed, even at night. Before sleep, people in Gaul often ate barley bread, pork, bacon, thick stews, and cheese. Romans from Italy often criticized Gauls for eating too heavily before bed, but for Gauls, warmth mattered more than philosophy. Britannia, survival over theory. In Roman Britain, nights were cold, damp, and long. Night meals focused on survival. Before sleeping, people commonly ate oats, barley porridge, stews, bread soaked in broth. Olive oil and wine were rare and expensive. Romans stationed in Britain adapted their diets despite medical advice. Germania and the nearby provinces. In Germania and nearby regions, Roman influence was weaker. Nighttime food included meat, dairy, and coarse bread. Eating meat before sleep was normal. Roman doctors disliked this, but soldiers and settlers ignored them. Cold climates demanded calories. Hispania, Spain. Oil, bread, and wine. Hispania was closer to Italy in diet. Before sleep, people ate bread, olive oil, olives, fish, and wine. Night meals were light and Mediterranean in nature. Roman culture blended smoothly here. North Africa, spices and warm nights. In North Africa, Roman and local traditions mixed. The climate was hot, even at night. Before sleeping, people ate bread, lentils, beans, onions, and beer. Beer replaced wine. Beans, feared elsewhere, were common here. Roman superstitions lost power in Egypt. Greece, philosophy meets tradition. Greek regions combined philosophy with local food. Before sleeping, Greeks often ate bread, olives, cheese, and fruit. Greek doctors heavily influenced Roman medical thought, so nighttime eating followed medical theory closely. The eastern provinces, night meals as social events. In Syria and the Near East, nighttime meals were more social. People ate later. Before sleep, meals included flatbread, yogurt-like dairy, spiced vegetables, and sweets.
Romans often criticized eastern provinces for luxury, but these traditions persisted. Soldiers across the empire. Roman soldiers adapted to local food. Their nighttime meals depended on local grain, climate, and supply lines. Military discipline remained, but ingredients changed. Religion and regional night eating. Local gods influenced nighttime food rituals. What was forbidden in Rome was acceptable elsewhere. The empire tolerated diversity, especially at night. Medical theory versus regional reality. Roman doctors preached universal rules. Reality ignored them. People ate what worked. Sleep followed food. The Roman Empire at night. As darkness fell across the empire, millions of different meals were eaten. All Roman, all different. What mattered most was not Rome, but where you slept.
When night approached in ancient Rome, food was only half the story. What Romans drank before sleeping mattered just as much, sometimes more. Liquids were believed to directly affect sleep, dreams, digestion, and even the soul. A wrong drink at night could disturb the body. The right one could bring deep, peaceful rest. Romans thought carefully before lifting a cup at bedtime. Water, the safest choice. Plain water was the most common nighttime drink, but Roman water was not always clean. Water came from aqueducts, wells, and springs. Before sleep, many Romans drank water sparingly. Too much water was believed to weaken digestion, cause night urination, and disrupt sleep. Moderation was essential. Wine, medicine, not pleasure. Wine was the most discussed nighttime drink. Romans rarely drank wine undiluted. Before sleeping, wine was mixed with water, sometimes heavily diluted. A small amount was believed to relax muscles, calm the mind, and aid digestion. Too much wine before sleep was considered dangerous. Why drunken sleep was feared. Romans believed drunken sleep caused nightmares, loss of self-control, spiritual vulnerability, and weakness of the soul. Elite Romans considered nighttime drunkenness shameful. Milk, a calming drink. Milk was associated with childhood, softness, and calm. Before sleep, milk was given to children, the elderly, and the sick. Healthy adults avoided milk at night, believing it created phlegm. Honeyed water. Honey mixed with warm water was a common nighttime drink. It was believed to calm the stomach, promote sleep, and ease digestion. Honeyed water was especially popular for women and children. Herbal drinks before bed. Herbal infusions were common. Popular nighttime herbs included chamomile, fennel, mint, and anise. These drinks were used as medicine, not pleasure. Beer and local drinks. In provinces like Egypt and Northern Europe, beer replaced wine. Beer was considered heavy. Doctors discouraged beer before sleep, but locals disagreed. Cold drinks at night, dangerous. Cold drinks before sleep were feared. Romans believed they shocked the stomach, slowed digestion, and caused illness. Warm or room temperature drinks were preferred. Drinks and dreams. Romans believed drinks influenced dreams. Herbal drinks brought calm dreams. Wine brought vivid dreams. Too much liquid caused restless sleep. Social class and night drinks. Wealthy Romans had access to fine wine, imported herbs. The poor drank water or thin wine. Slaves drank what was given. Ritual drinking before sleep. Some households poured a few drops of wine or milk as an offering before drinking. Drinking was sacred. A Roman bedside cup. As lamps dimmed, Romans took their final sip, not for pleasure, for balance.
In ancient Rome, late-night eating was never an innocent act. It was a sign that something had gone wrong in the natural order of the day, because Roman culture idealized daylight discipline and nighttime restraint, believing that a good citizen finished eating before darkness and surrendered the body to rest. Yet Rome was a massive, unequal, restless city where hunger did not follow moral philosophy, and once night fell and respectable households shut their doors, a different Rome emerged,
a Rome of shadows, whispers, and dim oil lamps where late-night food existed not as pleasure, but as necessity, danger, and sometimes crime. The city after dark was terrifying. Streets were narrow, unlit, and filthy. Fires were a constant risk, so lamps were limited, and anyone wandering at night was automatically suspicious, assumed to be drunk, immoral, criminal, or desperate. Yet thousands moved anyway, because labor ended late, because poverty waited for no sunrise, and because empty stomachs do not respect dull ideals. Late-night eating happened primarily around taverns, thermopolia, and street food stalls that bent the rules or ignored them entirely, places that by day fed workers quickly and cheaply, but by night transformed into semi-illegal gathering points for gamblers, thieves, prostitutes, soldiers, runaway slaves, and the urban poor, where food, alcohol, and danger mixed into one volatile atmosphere. The food eaten at night was heavy, greasy, salty, and fast, designed not for health but for immediate survival. Sausages made from cheap pork scraps were the most common, grilled openly with smoke filling the air, their smell traveling far and drawing in anyone hungry enough to risk the streets, along with thick bean stews reheated repeatedly, bread soaked in broth or wine, leftover meat pies of questionable freshness, and occasionally fried fish, all of it low quality, often spoiled, and eaten standing or crouching in corners while watching for trouble. Wine was everywhere, but it was the worst kind, sour, watered down, sometimes mixed with herbs or seawater, sold cheaply and consumed recklessly, and drunkenness escalated quickly. Arguments flared, insults turned into knife fights, and Roman writers described tavern violence as a nightly expectation rather than an exception. Fear of poisoning also surrounded late-night eating, especially for the wealthy, because assassinations through food were well known, and eating outside the trusted household kitchen after dark was considered especially dangerous, as darkness protected enemies and angry slaves alike, making elite Romans avoid nighttime street food whenever possible. Doctors warned constantly against late-night tavern food, claiming reheated stews, spoiled meat, and sour wine caused indigestion, fevers, and sudden death. And many Romans believed that people who died in their sleep had eaten badly the night before, reinforcing the belief that nighttime food was physically and morally dangerous. Late-night eating was also blamed on foreign influence, with elites accusing immigrants and Eastern customs of corrupting Roman discipline, calling night feasting un-Roman and decadent, even though Rome itself was built on outsiders, and the night belonged to those pushed aside by daylight order. Despite laws, lectures, and social shame, late-night eating never disappeared, because bakers worked before dawn, dock workers finished shifts at midnight, prostitutes ate between clients, and the poor lived on irregular hours, making night food a silent necessity woven into the city's survival. As dawn approached, taverns closed, scraps were finished, fires died, streets emptied, and Rome pretended the night had never happened. Philosophers rose to preach moderation, doctors warned against excess, priests offered morning prayers, and the city returned to its disciplined mask. But beneath it lingered the truth that Rome survived not only on daylight virtue, but on night hunger, fear, and food eaten in the shadows.
In ancient Rome, doctors believed that sleep and digestion were dangerous partners. Eating before sleep was not just a habit, it was a medical decision that could decide health, sickness, or even death. Roman medicine was deeply influenced by Greek ideas, especially the theory of humors, and according to this belief system, nighttime eating could easily disturb the balance of the body. Roman medical thinking, the body at night. Roman doctors believed that the body worked differently at night. During sleep, body heat moved inward, digestion slowed, organs became passive. Because of this, heavy food before sleep was considered risky. Why eating before sleep was dangerous? Doctors warned that eating before sleeping could cause poor digestion, gas and bloating, fever, headaches, and restless sleep. They believed food needed movement and warmth to digest properly, both reduced during sleep. The fear of rotting food. One of the biggest fears was that food eaten at night would rot inside the stomach. Roman doctors believed undigested food produced toxic vapors, bad humors, and internal decay. This was thought to slowly poison the body. Night eating and sudden death. Many Romans believed sudden death during sleep was caused by late eating. If someone died overnight, people often said he ate too much before bed. Doctors supported this belief, especially for rich banquets followed by sleep. Recommended time gap. Roman medical texts advised eat at least 2 to 3 hours before sleeping, walk slowly after eating, avoid lying down immediately. This advice was mostly followed by elites. Foods doctors allowed at night. Some foods were considered safer before sleep: bread, fruit, honey, and light cheese. These were believed to digest easily. Foods strictly discouraged. Doctors warned against eating before sleep: meat, fried food, beans, and heavy sauces. These were thought to overload the stomach at night. Wine before sleep: medicine or mistake. Small amounts of diluted wine were allowed. Doctors believed it warmed the stomach, aided digestion, but excess wine was considered deadly at night. Night eating and aging. Roman doctors believed frequent night eating caused faster aging, weak digestion, and a shorter lifespan. Moderation was linked with long life. Doctors versus reality. Roman medicine was written for the wealthy. The poor, slaves, and workers could not follow it. Hunger ignored medicine. Fear more than science. Roman medicine was based more on fear than evidence, yet these beliefs shaped daily life. A Roman doctor's final warning: eat early, sleep light, let the stomach rest. That was Roman medicine's rule for the night. For the ancient Romans, night was never empty. It was filled with spirits, gods, fears, and unseen forces. Because sleep was considered a vulnerable state, food eaten before sleep was surrounded by rituals and superstitions meant to protect the body and the soul. Why night needed protection? Romans believed that during sleep, the soul loosened its grip on the body. Evil spirits could approach. Dreams carried divine messages. Food before sleep could either invite danger or offer protection. Small rituals before eating at night. Some households followed quiet rituals before nighttime eating: washing hands carefully, speaking a short prayer, avoiding loud laughter. Night food was treated with seriousness, not pleasure. Offerings to household spirits. Before eating or drinking at night, Romans often offered a small portion to the lares and penates, household guardian spirits. A crumb of bread, a drop of wine or milk. This was believed to guard the family during sleep. Foods believed to protect sleep. Certain foods were thought to bring safe sleep. Bread, a symbol of stability. Honey, linked with divine favor. Milk, associated with purity. These were often eaten in small amounts before bed. Foods associated with bad dreams. Some foods were avoided at night because they were believed to cause nightmares. Beans, onions, heavy meat. Romans believed these foods disturbed the spirit. The god of sleep, Somnus. Somnus was the Roman god of sleep. Before sleeping, some Romans whispered prayers asking Somnus for peaceful rest. Food was kept light to avoid angering him. Dreams as messages. Romans believed dreams could be divine warnings. Heavy food before sleep was thought to distort dreams, hide divine messages. Light eating allowed clearer dreams. Night silence and eating. Eating loudly at night was discouraged. Noise was believed to attract restless spirits. Quiet eating meant safer sleep. The fear of ghosts and the dead. Romans believed the dead wandered at night. Leaving food scraps exposed was avoided. Food was covered or removed to prevent attracting spirits. Women and night rituals. Women often led night rituals: preparing honeyed water, offering food to spirits, blessing children before sleep. Food and protection were deeply connected. Amulets and bedside food.
Some kept protective amulets near the bed. A small piece of bread or fruit nearby was believed to ward off harm. Superstition over logic. These beliefs were not scientific, but they shaped daily behavior. Night food was never just nutrition, it was protection. A sacred ending to the day. As lamps dimmed and bowls emptied, Romans sought safety. With light stomachs and guarded spirits, they surrendered to sleep.
In ancient Rome, eating before sleep was not a universal right. Who was allowed to eat at night and who was denied depended entirely on age, status, and usefulness. The same society that preached moderation for elites controlled nighttime food strictly for the vulnerable. Children, protected but controlled. Children were seen as fragile. Roman doctors believed children digested food quickly and needed nourishment for growth. Because of this, children were often allowed to eat before sleeping. What children ate at night. Common nighttime foods for children included milk, bread softened in water or milk, honey, fruit. Heavy or spicy food was avoided. Night feeding and discipline. Even for children, night eating was controlled. Overfeeding was believed to cause bad dreams and create weak discipline. Parents balanced care with control. Slaves, food as power. For slaves, food before sleep was not a choice, it was a tool of obedience. When slaves ate at night. Slaves ate at night only if work ended late. Masters allowed leftovers, they were sick or pregnant. Many slaves ate standing after everyone else slept. What slaves ate. Typical night food for slaves: leftover pulse, bread, vegetables. Meat was rare. Hunger was common. The elderly a special exception. Old age changed rules. Romans were believed to have weak digestion and cold bodies. Because of this, they were often encouraged to eat before sleeping. Recommended night foods for the elderly. Doctors suggested warm soups, milk, honeyed water, and soft bread. These were meant to prevent weakness at night. Fear of night death. Romans feared elderly people might die in their sleep. Light food before bed was believed to strengthen the body and prevent sudden death. Who was not allowed to eat? Healthy adult men were most restricted. They were expected to eat earlier, control hunger, and avoid night food. Discipline defined masculinity. Gender and permission. Women were allowed light food at night, but excess was judged harshly. Reputation mattered. Food as social control. Night eating revealed hierarchy. Those with power chose restraint. Those without power faced hunger. The final truth. In Rome, night food was never neutral. It reflected value.
After all the rules, fears, rituals, and philosophy, one simple question remains. What did ancient Romans actually eat before sleeping? The answer sits somewhere between ideal and reality. The Roman ideal, the myth. Roman writers, doctors, and philosophers promoted a clear image. Eat early, eat lightly, sleep on an almost empty stomach. According to this ideal, a proper Roman ended the day with a little bread, some fruit, diluted wine or water. Heavy food before sleep was labeled immoral, unhealthy, and dangerous. This was the Rome of books and speeches. The daily reality. Real life rarely matched the ideal. Most Romans did not live on philosophical schedules. Work ended late. Hunger was constant. Food access was uneven. What the rich actually ate. Elite Romans often followed the rules, but only because they could. After heavy dinners earlier, their final bite was small: nuts, fruit, bread, honeyed water. They slept knowing food awaited them tomorrow.
what the poor actually ate. For the poor, the last meal was often the main meal. They ate pulse, bread, beans, vegetables, often late at night, not by choice, by necessity. Slaves and survival. Slaves ate what remained, sometimes late, sometimes not at all. Their last bite depended on mercy. Women and quiet eating. Women ate lightly and quietly. Food was tied to reputation. Some ate in secret. Children and the elderly, they were protected. Night food was allowed. Care overruled rules. Doctors versus hunger. Medical advice favored early eating. Hunger ignored it. Doctors spoke to elites. Workers listened to their stomachs. Religion and superstition. Food before sleep was ritualized. Offerings, prayers, and silence surrounded night eating. Protection mattered more than nutrition. The truth behind the myths. There was no single Rome. There were many Romes. What united them all? Everyone feared bad sleep. Everyone wanted safety at night. Food became comfort. The final bite. Some slept full. Some slept hungry. Some slept afraid. But every Roman ended the day with food, or the lack of it, shaping their night. The final thought. Ancient Rome was not disciplined or chaotic. It was human, and before sleep, humans eat as they must.
As the lamps fade and ancient Rome slips back into silence, one last thought lingers. These people, separated from us by 2,000 years, worried about the same things we do: hunger, health, sleep, and safety in the dark. Their final bite before bed carried fear, hope, and survival, just like ours still does today. History doesn't end when the story ends. It continues every time we choose to remember it. If this journey into the nights of ancient Rome made you see history differently, take a moment to support the stories that keep the past alive. Like the video so it reaches others who love hidden history. Share it with someone who enjoys deep stories, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey into the forgotten corners of the ancient world. Until then, sleep well, and remember, even the smallest habits can echo across centuries.